Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamun aleyküm ve rahmetullah ve berekatuh. This is inshallah the last session of the day after the dinner, so I know it will be a little hard not to sleep, but try your best. I will do mine. Inshallah, I will talk about yet another option to explain what we see, what we experience, what we observe, our reality. So I will give you another option, which is called self, in that case. And then I will refute it, so take it back. So by the end of the presentation, the session, your hands will be still empty. But I hope between these two states of emptiness, beginning of the presentation, end of the presentation, we will have something to be pleased with. We will get some insights into what's happening around. The title, it says it happens by itself. It sounds a lazy answer, like as if you don't care about the explanation, and it also suggests that this is so easy to refute, like we don't use it, like nobody says it happens itself. In fact, we do all the times, like we most of the times use this explanation for many things. I mean, you do, not much me, but you do, your mother does, your father does, teachers, they always do. Professors, they have to do. So we use this explanation. And I think the topic is highly related with the ego, the self, not because the title includes the self as a word, but I also believe that behind our efforts to attribute whatever we see there to the thing itself lies our desire to attribute things to ourselves. So we want to believe, we want to at least say that I can manage myself. Like I can achieve things, I can do this. If I can work hard, I can do that. We want to say such things, like we want to believe that. We want to attribute some qualities that we enjoy seeing to ourselves. Like we see something wise, and we say, oh yeah, of course I did this because I'm a wise man or wise woman. So we want to attribute things to ourselves, and I guess this somehow manifests itself as attributing things to others as well. So we have to distribute at some. So this is the reason I chose this subtitle, How I Am the King of My Life. Not because I'm the king of my life, but just to catch your attention. So my presentation will include 3 parts. The first is the question. I will try to remind you what is the question again. The second, we will give an answer. And the third, we will refute this answer. So just 3 simple parts: question, answer, and refutation. This is the content of the presentation. And the first part, the question, just to remind ourselves what is the question again, the question we're asking from the beginning, how do you explain what you see there? How do you explain your experiences, your feelings, your ideas? Whatever out there and whatever out there that you make a connection with. Right? With the reality, we always make a emotional or intellectual, like a human connection. We always do that with the reality. We have a connection with the reality. So it has an existence for us. And we have this urge to explain, or at least to make sense of things. Like what it means to me, to us. How do you explain it? And I believe as a let's say, a scientist, okay, I believe the first step to deal with such questions should be a what question. Like when somebody asks me, how do you explain what you experience? I ask, what do you experience? Like, just tell me what you experience there, so then we can start analyzing it. As our friends were saying previously, when somebody asks, like, what causing this, I guess the first question should be, like, what is this? Like, what is the effect? Just tell me the effect, let's look at it, and then maybe we can find the source. So I'm changing the question then a little bit. Instead of asking what do you explain, how do you explain your experiences, let's ask first, what do you experience? So I was looking for some images that I didn't want them too beautiful, because otherwise it suggests as if, I'm imposing something. I was looking some insect and things that usually makes people scared. But it was really too hard to find something not beautiful. Like, whatever we look, there is always a beauty there. Like, even with this image, which is honeybee, it could be scary. Like, when we see a honeybee, they don't like it, right? But when we look at it with a peaceful mind, what it does, we see a beauty there. We definitely see a design there, like an artistic design. And I'm not using these words just to glorify things or just make them beautiful. This is how I feel. If somebody asked me what is the beauty, I would say whatever it is that makes me feel that way. Like, I take things usually like a functional explanations, like the beauty is thing which makes me feel that way. Like, this is the beauty. And when I look at this, I have the same sense when I look at, for instance, a beautiful painting. Like when I look at this bee, the colors, how they cohere, even the contrast between some colors, this fur-like covering, the scary eye, there's a beauty there somehow. There's a design there, right? And I think such qualities, they are not inferential. We do not look at things and then conclude that, oh, there's a beauty or there's a design. No, we directly interact with the beauty itself or the design. When I look at it, I see design there. Like, I look at it, I see an arrangement. The wings somewhere, the legs are another place, and they are wisely arranged. What it means when I look at it, I see a wisdom there. Not because I conclude something, but wisdom is in front of my eyes. I will use this quality to conclude something, but these qualities are something that I observe, that I experience. Or even maybe more important than the others, the first and foremost, I see a renewal there. When I look at a honeybee, it's moving, right, all the time. The flower is moving. The honeybee getting on the flower, sucking the essence, do something. Like, everything is changing constantly. But through all these changes, for some strange reason, all the other qualities stay same. Like, everything is changing, but I still see the design there in this new creation or new experience, let's say, right? My experiences are constantly changing, but the artistic design is always there. The wise arrangement is always there. So this renewal, it's another maybe more important quality that I always observe. And again, just to emphasize that, like the things like beauty or wisdom, I really believe that the reality is spent by these qualities. This is what we observe all the time, right? I was planning to give some other example, like to give that tree, because when we were driving, I had a really lovely trip with my lovely friends, and they were reminding me constantly, oh, we can look at the trees, like they are dying, but the beauty is like amazing, like mind-blowing, the beauty of the dying trees. which reminded me with the story that I heard, which is a little bit more tragic. There's a painting by a famous painter, name doesn't matter, but the lady we see is the wife of this painter. She dies, and the painter, that was a little strange guy, he sees the beauty in the dying woman. And instead of, calling the police officer or 911, she starts painting.
He starts.
He starts. Yeah, it would be another exciting story if she was. Yeah.
According to the age. Nobody knows if it's really
Yeah. So he starts painting. Why? Not because, he started thinking and then concluded something. No, beauty was there. He couldn't refuse it. He couldn't deny it. And all he could do was just painting. Right? Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting anything. When you see that body, you should call 911. Your local imam.
Just
right?
take a
There are
picture.
some rules that you have to follow. But this guy didn't know about this Sharia, so he just started painting. So what I'm trying to say is, these qualities, I think they're always there, wherever you look. So the question is not, whether these qualities are there or not. The question is, whom you're going to attribute, or what you're going to attribute these qualities. I haven't heard anyone, including scientists, we love to criticize them, they don't deny beauty, they don't deny order. Right? They say, yes, there's order, but I can explain it by referring something.
You do that.
Yeah. So, anyway, I think this is something human. We still see these qualities, they are always there. So our question then is, whom or what you're going to attribute these qualities?
Especially before changing the slide, especially the relationship between the bee and the flower is more amazing than the bee.
Yes.
And the qualities of the bee. So we have to draw attention to the relationship, the bee and the flower, how they are separate beings.
As you go deeper or as you go wider, the amazement is you cannot handle it. Once you start thinking the relationship between the flower and the bee,
Then the tasty honey.
then the taste of the honey, right? Yes, it's getting really, really exciting. And I guess, again, this urge, this excitement is there for everyone. That's what drives, for instance, the scientists to analyze it. Because this excitement is there for them too. Or for us too. Believer, unbeliever, it doesn't matter. There's something human.
Why do you portray us like evils or something like scientists too?
No, I'm a scientist. I'm just giving a clue that, I'm an evil person.
Speak for yourself.
That woman, the scientist. Anyway. So again, question is whom we're going to attribute. So in this session, in this specific session, we will try to attribute things to self. In our example, for instance, the honeybee. We're going to say that, okay, maybe it's honeybee, all these parts, small parts coming together. The honeybee is a system, complex system. Maybe it's the honeybee that is responsible from what we see. Okay? Just to locate ourselves, this presentation, in relation to others. For instance, our brother Asim was talking about some causes. So that's another option. You can say that, for instance, no, maybe it's not the self, the honeybee, but there are all these causes, external causes, right? Not the internal, but the external causes, like the sun, some aliens, the trees, Mary the honeybee, the beekeeper. They somehow come together, act on it, and this is what we see, right? There's another option that was discussed previously. Yet another option, you can say that maybe there are some abstract notions like nature. The naming doesn't matter. You say, yes, there are these causes, the self, but there are also some latent, like hidden machinery acting behind, like governed by all these physical or biological, chemical, depending on your level of analysis, equations, the formulas. Or there are some processes taking place behind, like evolution, some other cosmological, the mechanisms, doesn't matter. Like you can try to attribute what you see to such things. That's another option. I'm not going to discuss them, I'm just trying to locate this specific session. This will be discussed by another session, inshallah. So again, here we will consider the self. This is our option. Okay, it happens by itself. This is what we're going to give as an answer. And what it really means when we say it happens itself, it means like it can't create itself, because the existence of the be is the first and foremost thing we experience, right? So there must be a source of this existence. So when we say it happens itself, it also includes consciously, unconsciously, implicitly, tacitly, explicitly. It can create itself. This is what we also say when we say it happens by itself. We also say it can sustain itself, because things not only exist, but also continue to exist, at least from our perception. Right? I'm not giving you some ontological arguments, but this is our perception. Something happens, and then it continues. It changes shapes, it manages, like sustains itself, if it's happening itself. We also see this renewal, as I said, everything is renewed. That means when we say it happens by itself, it also means it can design or redesign itself. But this answer includes all these 3, 4, 5. The first one, at least it sounds like, I'm not, suggesting that easy or hard, but it sounds like most of the time, we don't use it. Like nobody says it creates itself. Everybody knows there must be a source of the existence. It's easier, right? Relatively speaking. But when it comes to it sustain itself, it manages its existence once it's given existence. Or it can design, redesign itself. These things that we usually get, confused or unarmed. We always use them unconsciously. Like a baby, for instance, where we know that there's a source of the creation of the baby, existence of the baby, but once baby is born, it develops by itself. And he learns things, she learns things. We love to say, for instance, oh, my child, he's so clever. What we mean he can learn things. Like he can change himself or herself by learning things, for instance. And because everything is constantly changing, and because most of the time we do not attribute this change every single time, it also means we somehow believe, or let's say we are not that certain that it cannot redesign itself, meaning we say it can design or redesign itself. Again, baby, right? It becomes as an infant, and then becomes a baby, young adult, and so on. How it happens? Baby. Right? So it happens itself. A baby does it. Just, again, I'm not going to discuss this, but I think this is an important contrast that will be discussed by another session, in another session again. Just keep in your mind, like, yet another option. There's a verse from Quran, which actually the reason I use the honeybee. It says, and your Lord inspired to the bee. It's changing our understanding of the things like critically. So whatever you see there, it's a command. It's an inspiration. It's not taking place by itself. It's not the B doing things. Right? Again, just keep in your mind as a contrast, as another option, but I'm not planning to discuss this. So the second part, the first part, I hope we are clear with what is the question, right? We have these qualities, whom or what to attribute. By the way, do not hesitate to interfere yet.
Isn't that the answer? It happens by itself?
Oh, yes, I mean, I gave the glimpse of the answer, but here I will more elaborate the answer, like how it goes, or with a case study, I will try to show like what this answer implies, kind of. Okay? So yes, the presentation was not prepared very carefully. Thank you for So yes, the first part, the question. Now let's get the answer again. It happens itself. Okay. So before going even further, so let's ask the question what we mean with the self. So as a person giving the answer that it happens by itself, what I really mean with self. So this self is just a special use of self. It's not the only use of the self. And this is usually what we mean when we say it happens by itself. So we take the self, or honeybee, or a child, as a system, as a complex system, which includes many parts, like the organs, the eyes, brains. And these small parts, they come together, interact in a special way, and give rise to the behavior that we observe. Okay, this is the way that we take the self. Small parts, many parts, coming together, acting in a special way, and this is what we see.
I'm sorry, who is we? We take this?
Oh, we. Which we? I used multiple we's, sorry. Oh, okay. I think, I understood it. When we say it happens by itself, the self there, that represents a system. That's when I use we, that the we people who use such answers, it happens itself. So out of the respect to myself, I use the third person, the plural form, we. But when I say it happens itself, so it's not clear what I mean with the self, right?
This is what you mean.
Yes, this is what I mean.
So
Yes.
this, when you say we, you mean how we have been taught to think about the self, how we generally perceive when we talk about the self.
Yes, definitely.
We see ourselves as independent machines like this.
Yes. Thank you for clarification. Yeah. So, for instance, the clock, right, the leftmost, all these tiny gears work together, and this is what clock. We don't need anything more. Like once the clock is there, manufactured with all these small parts, it can function itself. Or a bee with these all organs, it can, manage itself again. A mechanical duck. We don't see it around anymore. There are, what's the word?
Extinct.
Extant, yes. Extant, yes.
Turaro.
Sorry?
There's a Turaro duck somewhere? This is 1.0, or what is the version? 2.0. Is there a new version of the duck? Or no? It's all the
Yeah,
same.
we couldn't get the joke. Yeah.
Sorry.
I couldn't get the joke.
Okay. So forget about the joke then. Yes, let's discard the joke. We can just give me a second. Or we can take things in a more abstract way because it becomes more scientific then. Like we define things as small, like nodes, like the parts, like human brain, for instance, right? We define it as a network. All the small parts neural clusters. They interact to each other. And through this interaction, right, we see the behavior, the outcome. And how it happens itself. All these parts come together and do it, right? So I will use the child example in the rest. So again, let's clarify, because I said I'm defining the self as parts, set of parts and their interaction, how we define the child as a set of parts. So for instance, you can define the child as a set of organs. The brain, eyes, the lungs, like the stomach, the lips, all these small parts. Or you can define it as in terms of the capacities, like a child can speak, memorize. So it has some capacities, language, memory, attention. They come together and interact, and this is what we see. Or you can just define it as a set of materials, the cells, the molecules, some elementary particles. It doesn't matter. Like, this is how you take it. The child is a collection of something.
Again, that's the materialist philosophy of the self.
Oh, that's materialistic philosophy, most of it. But it doesn't have to be. For instance, when we talk about the capacities, like the memory, language, attention, they don't have to be like the material entities. As long as we think that the child is the collection of these and it belongs to child itself, or they have their own existence and they interact to each other, I guess this is the approach. Yeah, most of the time we use materialistic language, but even if we go further beyond that and say that, oh, but do you know what, there are things which are not material in the life, we can still be using the same approach and attributing the things to themselves.
Yeah, I think this is a helpful clarification, because if I understand you correctly, your issue here is not the way we define self, the way self is defined. Rather, the issue is we can explain things by saying it happens by itself. You know, the previous session was we can say this flower is coming into being because of the natural causes. This session is, okay, we can't say natural causes, they're ignorant, this and that, but we can say, well, just the seed grows into a flower by itself. So you want to question what that self is, because then you want to interrogate if that can actually make it self. But the main issue here is not that you're concerned self is materialistically defined. Exactly. Your concern is we can say, well, I don't have to explain this, it just happens by itself. You know, universe just unfolds itself and the baby grows. I actually have showed this documentary in my class from National Geographic, Baby in the Womb. The title is In the Womb. And it's the narrator, they're showing very interesting things in the womb, this, that. At some point he has this, like, I almost memorized this sentence. He says, you know, the mother provides the oxygen and the shelter and the food, but the real star of the show is the fetus herself, dividing, in extreme speed according to intricate set of plans. So, and I pause that and to tell my students, did you just hear that? Did you just hear that? Like the real star of the show is the fetus herself. Now the whole documentary is trying to explain how the fetus is happening, but he said the fetus grows by itself. The mom gives nutrition and so on, but the real star of the show is the fetus herself. And I'm like, but you're trying to explain how this fetus is growing, and you're saying she's the star of the show. She's making herself. She's coming into being and she's making herself, she's the hero. So this is, you want to interrogate this thing.
Yes. So yes, previously when we discussing the causes, we were trying to attribute things to some external things. And let's assume we failed. We're now saying that, okay, maybe we can attribute them to some internal things. Right? And in reality, our explanations usually are not that simple. Like, they don't only include just the external forces or internal. They're usually a mixture of them. Like, we attribute some part of the things to nature, another part of to some causes, another part of to self. But by showing, just trying to attribute everything to self, I'm just trying to show the impossibility of it. And I guess, to me at least, regardless of the extent of this attribution, like no matter how little you try to attribute to self, you will always fail. The reason, inshallah, will come. So the question was in my mind, how do children develop, right? And I made the most sensible thing. I opened the textbook, right, named How Children Develop. And the textbook told me that many subsystems, many parts of the child, such as perception, action, attention, memory, language, work together to determine the behavior, right? So this is the textbook definition of how children develop. So it seems like it happens itself. And also, because everything is renewed, again, you see, like nobody denies the renewal. Renewal is there, so you have to attribute to something. So what you say, yes, we can explain this renewal by saying that it evolves itself. It had that shape before, now it has this shape. So the question, like how, yes, they develop themselves, but how? Like, what do you mean? How they develop? It says, first, they learn simple things by themselves, like reaching, grasping, holding, right? Once they acquire these capacity, knowledge, now they can do better things, like more complicated things. They can walk after a while. And it happens itself, like the child does it, by learning things, acquiring things. All these parts, again, like working together, making the child to learn walk. And they start playing with the things, they start distinguishing things, the colors and so on. They become social entities, all by themselves. Once they start interacting with other people, like they can learn and learn and learn more. And their interaction with the objects becomes more complicated now. They can learn even further. And one day all these cognitive capacities, they explode and language emerge, which locate the child in a very lucky position. Now she or he can manage even further using the language. So it happens by itself. Okay, the child does it. The parts of the child do it. So which brings to mind that, wow, I mean, if this is the case, these parts, right, they should be really capable. Why? Because sometimes I see some examples that when something happens to one of the parts, I see some disorders, for instance, developmental disorders. They themselves has their own beauties in their self. There's another discussion. But it also reminds me that the system, like for instance, the system working right now, right? It must be really capable. I mean, the things it manages right now, it's extraordinary. So that was the answer, okay? Any question so far?
What was the answer?
It happens itself. The child, for instance, develops herself.
What's the question?
The question, how they developed, or how do you explain what happens there? And the answer was, it happens by itself. Now, time to refute or show why this answer instead that doesn't make much sense.
A little bit of sense.
It happens by itself.
Much sense, a little bit of sense. No.
Let's start with much sense and then end up with no sense. Inshallah.
Let's try.
Let's do this.
Any other questions? Any other objections? Parts that you don't like? So one obstacle to attribute things to these small parts which constitute the self, it's undeniable perfect harmony. Like this arch or a dome, as if every small part in the system somehow knows where to stand, what to do, when to do it, and how to communicate with others so that stay in the perfect harmony. Right? So for instance, in this arch example, if for some reason one of the stones decide not to obey the gravitational force, like I'm attributing to nature, this arch will collapse. Right? They have to act in a certain way. Every stone has to act in a certain way. Otherwise, we wouldn't see that arch. And it cannot be any way, any certain way. It has to be a precise certain way. Such a harmony brings the mind that because nobody objecting or they do whatever they are supposed to do all the time, as if they're receiving the comments from the others or just giving the comments to others at the same time. Because remember, we're not trying, we cannot attribute things to something outside the system. The answer says it happens itself. So whatever happens, you have to attribute to things inside the system. And you cannot define an outside, for instance, observer, a man, for instance, building this arch. You cannot do that. At least in this, the answer. It happens itself. So you have to attribute things to stones. Because that was your claim. So as if everyone is both master, giving the orders to others, and they are obeying things, but at the same time receiving the orders from the all others as well. It's like a glimpse of a contradiction.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? Well, what do you mean? Like you
cannot... like, for example, like every stone in that arch giving orders to the rest of the stones, but at the same time receiving commands from the rest of the stones. What's wrong with that situation?
So I was just taking it as a like a categorical denial. Like if you are saying that you are master, you cannot be slave at the same time.
Yeah, think of a project, if I may. Think of a project, nobody's a project manager. Everybody behaves like the manager. Final word, final decisions. And at the same time, everybody is following the other ones that, no, it's your word. If you say we should do this, we'll do this. It can't be. You can't have everybody being a project manager and yielding the other people, because for it to be a unified result, a balanced result, there has to be a project manager. Other people have to obey that. So in this case, like if those stones are taking that shape, they can't be, because they produce something that's balanced and unified. There has to be a unified project managing. If all of them are project managers at the same time as they are yielding to other people's commands, it's not going to happen. It can't be.
I'm having difficulty understanding why each piece is giving orders and taking orders. We're just staying.
Because in this case, that bridge, is made by somebody who said, I'm going to put them in such a way, it's going to be balanced, right? You put it that way, it stays that way. But if there's nobody who's ordering them in that way, could those stones say, okay, guys, let's line up here. You go here, you go here. One of them has to be the one. They can't all be saying, because when you say it happens by itself, each of the stone, each part knows where to go and how to cooperate with the other ones.
It's teamwork going on.
Go ahead.
No, just to expand upon what is being said is when you have essentially starting with the observation, as we always do, we notice that n order, a single order, is being obeyed. The idea of having two masters basically means having multiple orders. If you have multiple orders, yet one order is being obeyed, then the single order being obeyed, I guess, elaborates the harmony, but multiple orders, as a matter of fact, contradicts the idea of a single order being obeyed. So the phrase "everyone is both a master and slave" in that case seems conflicting or contradictory, as the order which is observable is that there's a single order established. Now that clearly doesn't solve whether or not which of these stones is a master or a slave, or is it even the stone. So I guess the presentation can continue to expand upon this idea of, yes, there is harmony, yes, there is order, but not everything can be the initiator of the order and the receiver of the order itself.
But these are not human beings, and master and slave are human concepts. Mm-hmm. So if stones are commanding and receiving commands, they may not have any good to say, I don't, for instance, if this guy commands me, who are you to command, I would say, but a stone is not necessarily saying this, mm-hmm. right? So I don't really see a contradicting thing between master and slave as far as stones.
Because you don't think, for instance, they obey an order.
No, they can obey the order, but at the same time they can be also the order, the commander and the soldier, foot soldier on at the same time.
This same time part I don't understand. I mean, once you...
Simultaneously.
Like interchangeably,
exchangeably, however you say.
But I'm just as a reminder, we're trying to explain just this like a simple single moment, right?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I've seen.
So I'm not talking about like first.
Better than this, natural. Mm-hmm. No one made it. I've seen better ones.
What do you mean? I have a better ones.
I've seen better arches.
Oh, okay.
Which is natural, not human made.
What do you mean with the natural?
I mean, okay.
So I guess no. This is really important. I mean, just to combine you and for the Faraz comment.
Existing by chance.
Because Faraz also, Zafar. He also said they just stay there, right? They don't follow the order. But it means that we don't see the order there. Like when, for instance, all these stones. There's an active, the behavior there. Their relation with the rest, for instance, it follows a certain, let's say, physical equations. They're not just staying there. The relation with their mass and the acceleration or whatever, right? They are so precise. There is definitely an order there for each of them. And this order is not different from one stone to another stone. It's always same.
Actually, I think the confusion comes from, we highlighted three different causal inference, right? We can say this happens because of the cause, or this happens by itself, or this happens by nature. But it's very difficult to find very concentrated followers, just one of the option of this. What I mean, if you see the world as a result of the nature, then you explain all of the single things as a result of the nature. No, it doesn't work like that. Generally, most of the times, when it comes to, when it comes to children, we can find ourselves speaking like a child doing those kind of things by itself. But when it comes to flower, we can use the explanation. It happens because it's spring right now, it's the fall season right now. We generally attach or attribute the qualities to the external sources. So when you use this example, I mean rocks, generally in our daily lives, we are not attributing to the qualities to that kind of things which are not animal, human, and plant. Because generally, when it comes to explanation of the manifested qualities on rock or mountain or ocean, generally we don't use the approach of happens by itself. But what's important here is that, as far as I understand, and what Birkan is trying to do, actually, if you think deeply, there is no difference that the child's components cannot be a master and slave at the same time, and claiming that this rock cannot be a master and slave at the same time. What we see, Muhammad simultaneously protested to you, right? Master and slave, these are the human concepts. How can you attribute this to the rocks or mountains? Or I think the message is there. Do you think attributing a master and slave, the concept of master and the concept of slave, to the rock is something ridiculous? I think this is the main message of the Birkan's presentation. At the same time, attributing the concept of master or slave or a child's components doing those kind of things, they seem different, but at the founding level, they are same. As I understand. Yeah. Qasim.
Perhaps I can add to or paraphrase what you're saying in a different way, which is something which has the ability to give must not be in need of receiving. Meaning, if that's why you cannot be a master and a slave at the same time, because you have the ability to, let's say, provide. How can you be in the need of being provided for? You know, the concept is very contradicting. It's like saying I'm able to self-sustain, but I need to be sustained. Just cannot coexist within the same entity or being, whether it's material, or I guess living or inanimate.
Do you mind if I conclude with Yusuf's comment?
Okay. Go ahead. And Osman had
okay. Oh, I didn't see. Sorry.
So, for example, when we look at this arch, so we do observe order. And as you were beginning with, when we look at this bee, we do observe beauty. So when we look at this arch and see the order, for example, we don't say that order is a humanly concept. The order is out there. But the question is, to whom I'm going to attribute this order? So, because I do see that somebody is obeying the order. So then the question comes, well, if it's going to be themselves, so there must be this order. Somebody is going to give the order, somebody is going to obey the order. And if it is them, then that means each stone has to give order and has to receive order. So I cannot say that this is humanly things, so I cannot attribute them. I mean, this is what I do observe. Either I'm going to say that, going back to your bee example, there's no beauty in the bee, because beauty is a humanly concept, it's in my perception, but there is no beauty in the bee, for example. But I guess this is not like the trajectory of discussion as far as I can see.
I think these are concepts. Mm-hmm. The example said master and slave. These are concepts. By definition, at one moment, One is a human experience from the human relationship. That's an example that the parable, actually analogy, sorry, not parable, analogy that we say, if you are a master, you have slave, but you cannot be a slave at the same time. By definition. It was a beautiful example. I like that. It's a good classic example. If you are a source of nourishment, it means nourishment giver. At the same time, by definition, you cannot be in need of nourishment. By definition, these are by definition concepts. Not that master and relationship, human construction at the result of their observation of the social life and then applying to the arch. No, it doesn't work.
Yes.
That's why the confusion comes from.
Yes, good clarification.
Sorry. I didn't finish. Sorry. So these are human construction that we cannot apply to it. Apply to the existence of the simplest example, the arch that we see here. Take the concept and apply it by definition. Something cannot be at the same time opposite of itself. That's by definition. Human capacity rejects this contradiction, self-contradictory reasoning. No human being can accept it regardless of whether they are believers or not. I think you are trying to draw attention to this.
Excuse me, but I don't see that why someone can be both nourisher and in need of nourishment. Like a mother nourishes the baby, at the same time she needs nourishment.
The mother nourishing the baby is the most corrupt language. Mother cannot nourish.
I guess the problem rises from just there. Like once you accept that mother nourishes baby, you're already committing the I will call it crime of causes. That was awesome talking about. So, but since I'm the presenter, I have to be the one, with the last word. So let's go to the next slide.
You can't be the presenter and the audience at the same time. No?
Sorry?
You can't be the presenter and the audience at the same time.
Yes, so I have to be presenter, so I have to act like a presenter. Thank you for reminding. That was the... Oh, okay.
I was trying to say you at the same time audience at the...
No, I was just trying to follow with the analogy.
It's a joke.
Thank you for being a good audience.
To understand that this is by definition.
So I guess it becomes even more complicated and maybe more clearer, in a paradoxical way, that when we say all these parts interacting to each other, like in our, for instance, the baby example, even if you just take it as a materialistic perspective, for instance, the cells we have in our body, like we have numerous kinds of, many kinds of different cells doing very different jobs, like at very different places of the body. As if every cell is unique in your body. But somehow they are managed to interact with themselves, like with each other. They know how to interact with the all others as well. They don't only know their job, but they only know the others' jobs as well. One cell can interact with another cell. One kind can interact with another kind. It all happens all the time. And, one example, this is from a TV show, the lines. So even sometimes TV shows can teach you about the religion. I really like the example. It says, one cell in your liver decides to wander around, like goes to your lung. And continue there what it used to do, just being the liver cell. And what happens? We get lung cancer. And when we see that this order is broken, the results are devastating. It's not like, oh yes, they interact with each other, but it's not that important how they interact. No, it is so important how they interact. It has to be that precise way. So again, just as a side note, even when it is lung cancer, it still follows another kind of order. I'm not refuting that. But what I'm trying to say that, for instance, at this very moment, I hope I don't have a lung cancer. And all these cells, the things they do, by knowing their job, respecting others' job, it's so amazing what they do. If they are really able to do that. Again, as if one knows all the rest of my body, or the child's body. Not they have, as a parable or analogy, they have eyes which can see everything. It doesn't stop there, right? Because child embedded in the reality. It interacts with outside world as well. And all the cells, or the atoms, or the organs, or the capacities, whatever you want to say, they also know the things outside their body. They know how to interact with the water. They know how to interact with the sun. They know how to interact with the other people. They don't know much about the opposite sex most of the time, right? It's always a trouble, but other than that, they know everything. The interaction with the outside world, so it reminds that they don't only see, the rest of my body, but as if they know the rest of the universe as well. Whatever happens here, it perfectly matches whatever happens in a galaxy out there. The match is perfect. As if, I'm trying to things themselves, right? Not the nature in this session. So again, as if they know each other. So we were trying to disconnect by attributing the things to the self, but at the end you have to connect it to back, but because this is our reality. So another kind of contradiction, like it is disconnected, but at the same time perfectly connected.
Sorry, I have a question.
Sure, please.
So you said the match that's happening like within your body, like all the cells intertwining, coming together, matches what's happening, what we see, what we observe in the universe, in terms of the way we observe it is that they're happening by themselves, like that's how they're matching.
So in terms of, again, the way, it depends how you look at it, but for instance, it matches in terms of what we call as physical laws, in terms of biological laws, in terms of beauty, aesthetic values. And it matches. Whatever quality you choose, it's always there the same way.
Can you please give an example on that?
The simplest is, for instance, the type of physical interactions. For instance, I drop a ball here, the way it will falls is the same when I drop it on top of the moon. Or you can take it that way, like you have a relationship with the moon. Like you, as a person, you have the relationship with the moon, right?
How so?
How so? It has, first and foremost, you have an emotional connection with the moon. I don't know you much, but let me talk about myself. I have an emotional connection with the moon. Moon is not something, it's not a strange being for me. It makes sense. So it has a place in my reality.
And also, I think physically, I'm not an expert on this, but if there was no moon, the scientists said there would be no tidal waves, and then that's somehow connected to the way we end up getting the plants and the nutrition and so on. You think, like physically, we're also
yes. Like
linked.
I mean, I like to start from the emotional connection, but beyond that, these physical connections are already there. The placement or moon, the location of moon, highly associated with your moods, your physiological states, for instance. So as if they somehow interact each other. Or the sun, maybe would be another, like an easier example. You know how my body relies on sun. Or the animals, or the trees. They come together to make a, like, let's say, bigger self. They are so intermingled, like interwoven.
So the cells in the body, they should know each other and interact with each other and command each other, as well as they should do the same thing all the way to this sun. They should have the knowledge of the sun, and also they should have command over the sun, because that is what is necessary for the sustenance, for renewal, or existence of the body.
Yeah, good summary. Great summary, actually.
So your engagement with any creation you're talking about, it's a typical human engagement, right? That we all should be going through. Yeah. Do you mind elaborating more in terms of, I like the sun example. So the sun rises, so the same way our body, you wake up, sun is at its zenith, you're like, hey, full swing, midday starts to decline, and then we're like, okay, the day's passing by, Is it the type of
This is type of, yes. Another type, the sunlight comes to your body, and voila, your body knows how to use it. They have special compartments just to process the sunlight, for instance.
If you made yourself, that means you knew that there's sun outside, and you knew that you would get vitamin D this way and then get the sun this way. Like if you made yourself, you know all of this.
If I made myself?
Yeah, because he's trying to refute you making yourself.
So, perhaps before I ask my question, the way I understand it is, if the claim that is being made that I can, let's say, sustain myself, then let me not use the word naturally, then I must be able to have control over everything that, I guess, in a way, is being utilized to sustain myself, which basically points towards the connected part. But can you give an example of where everyone is disconnected?
Oh, I said disconnected because that was our initial assumption. We were trying to say that the self should be sufficient to itself, right? Because we were trying to refute any kind of external forces, influences, but the point we reach that maybe it's not that easy, right? You have to be connected. So sorry for maybe confusion. Yeah.
Can I just make one point? Sorry. As we keep continuing with the body relationship with human being or child relationship with the rest of the creation, actually being commanded and at the same time receiving all the command, the number of the being commanded and receiving the command in an exponential level, it actually increases to a point that actually it becomes impossible.
Yes, yes. I guess even when you take just two pair, like one pair, two things, try to relate them, it's already impossible. But yes, I mean, I can see that even the impossibility has some degrees maybe. Yeah. So, I didn't put that. So with this example, for instance, going back to your question. So the sun and my body, right? I said sunlight comes and my body knows how to use it. And it's not like they take it and try to make sense of it. No, they know how to use it. Again, they have like a special structures just to use the sunlight. It's already there. So there's this idea comes to mind, like then, but there are processes, right? For instance, they co-evolved. The things co-evolved. That's the reason they interact to each other. They can interact to each other. But again, we were trying to attribute things to self. So there is no place for external processes like the evolution or so on. We're not dealing with historical accounts here. So if you want to put things like a nature, for instance, if you want to use it, you have to take it and put inside everything of your body. Because you're saying that it happens itself. So if you want to say that there are some laws, they tell them, to each cell how to interact, then you have to load all these laws, all this knowledge, everything to your cell. Every single part, every single member should have the entire nature in it. And it doesn't stop there, because once you load the knowledge there, you have to also load another layer which will tell how to use knowledge. And then another layer how to utilize this machinery. Another layer how to utilize this machinery. So whatever is necessary, you have to load inside every single member. So that's the reason from the beginning I chose the title Extraordinary Parts. Like, if you want to say that the child develops itself, whatever path you take, you have to attribute godlike qualities, godlike, I'm just using it loosely, okay? Some extraordinary qualities, every single member of your body. So without this attribution, the system doesn't work. But we see that it works. Right? We see that the system works. We know what is required for that. If you want to say that it happens itself, then you have to attribute all these qualities, again, quote-unquote, godlike qualities, to every single member of your body. So, yeah, I guess that's the point. That's the summary. And I guess this is the reason although we don't use it much explicitly, I guess this is the reason, this is our favorite explanation. It happens itself. Because we are attributing things to ourselves, right? I have these qualities. I know how to deal with the sun. I know how to deal with my professors. And we are attributing things to ourselves, which is good. I mean, it's bad to attribute things to birds or sun. But attributing things to ourselves, I guess, it gives us the pleasure. So maybe that's the reason this explanation is not that obvious for us. Like, it's managed to escape for the eyes. Like, we all know that people attribute things to causes or the nature. But when it comes to itself, we say, we don't use it that much. I guess this is my explanation. Maybe it's totally wrong. Because it's attribute things to ourselves. We are pleased with it.
So what makes a quality godlike? Is it the amount of the quality or just the reference?
I guess
just the referencing to it.
Again, I was just using it, very loosely. But what I was saying that with all these previous examples, that it has to know the rest. It has to know the entire universe. And we see that we don't have any limit there. Once you start attributing things, the things go astray very quickly. So at the one moment you reach that you have to attribute some absolute qualities to your members. Like your cell knowing the rest of the universe. That's what I mean with the godlike qualities. I'm not, maybe it was a wrong choice.
In a sense, all-knowing.
Yes, all-knowing. Yes, actually, yes, this is what we say, right, when it comes to religion. And that's a good example, thank you. So we say God is all-knowing. So we started with the cell, and we concluded that a cell is all-knowing. So it's not any different than a traditional, let's say, a religious talk.
A little bit different though. It's different, right? When you say all-knowing, it's not the kind of knowing that we...
Of course, I mean, not metaphysical all-knowing what you mean, but whatever particle is on Earth, now this particle needs to know all knowledge that you can observe in the existence. Let's put it this way. So, in a physical sense, all-knowing, each particle becomes...
Now again, it's with the small g. Like a tiny guy.
You have an escape clause, right?
So in here, practically what's happening is that while trying to deny one God, so we happen to accept infinitely many gods.
I mean, yes, you can take it that way too. Yes. Oh, okay. We have only 10 minutes, and this is the two last slides. These are some readings that I've benefited for this presentation. I recommend you to read. And that's it. So we have 10 more minutes, I guess.
No, 15.
15? Okay, even better.
Can you go back to the arch example? So what we experience there, what we observe is the perfect balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that perfect balance comes together by the unconscious stones and makes that order there. Unconscious stones come together and there is a balance. When we look at examples like this, I don't think there is anyone in this room who would say that actually it happens by itself. They would definitely, I don't think there is actually one single person who would say that like it is because of the stones. We would all say that it is a man-made and there is someone who understands the physics and that's why he made that arch in an orderly fashion. It's very simple, like, I mean, if you think about it, it's just a stone, there is even no life to it. But in our day-to-day life, what we all do, for whatever reason, when we interact with the rest of the universe, which is a lot more complicated, and there is a lot more, in a way, better balance, we don't see any problem saying that it just happened by itself. Like, to me, that's mind-blowing. Like, how one person would be, or like, would say that actually there is no way for such an arch to come into existence by itself or by the stones. There must be someone. And when we take that analogy and apply to the universe and our relationship with the universe, it is so easy for us, especially the people who have been through the secular education. We don't see any problem with it. Actually, we use it on like everyday language, and we don't really see any problem with it. That's just something that I wanted to like underline once again. I wanted to highlight it. And I don't know what that thing that actually makes us to do that, because it is such an apparent contradiction, but we should be really conflicted by it, but for whatever reason we are not. I don't know why.
Just to speak to that, I was doing this and suffering the consequences of it, but I didn't know I was doing this. for a long time in my life at least.
Could you give an example?
Presentation.
I mean, for me, the experience was my personal, for example, life.
Do you mean it's not the arch, right?
Not that, but thinking it's happening by
I took it
itself.
that way first.
I feel a certain way. It's just my feeling. I feel this way. I'm getting this thought. That's just me as a natural being. It's just happening. So I didn't put it in these words that this is happening by itself or by nature or by law. I didn't have the vocabulary to express it, but you start with the effect. The effect was everything was mute. It referred to nothing but itself. I am feeling sad about something means or refers to me feeling sad. That's it. It refers to nothing else. It means nothing else. So everything is just self-referential. Things are what they are. I am what I am, and it's a dead universe. It's everything. Whatever you say something, it sucks like a black hole. Sucks everything. This tree is beautiful. The tree sucked the beauty in, it disappeared. The tree is beautiful, and it took its beauty. Beauty is somebody else took something, and whatever is something is theirs. So I want to think that I wasn't deliberately torturing myself. Now I actually do deliberately torture myself. I think knowledge comes with a heavy responsibility, actually something we didn't talk about, but I think whoever seeks understanding should be very careful what they ask for, because you may actually end up understanding. And when you actually understand and then you don't live up to it, then you really suffer. Then you have no help really. It's really despairing. So ignorance is bliss, really, I believe. but the understanding, but now I actually truly find it mind-boggling, and that's why when I don't perceive, when I end up living in a way that I'm attributing things to themselves, it's soul-crushing in a way that it's like there's nothing after it, because now I'm really truly contradicting myself. But before that, I didn't know better.
So I think that's the missing piece. You were saying, like, even though this makes total sense, we keep doing the same thing over and over, right? How is it, right? Only by realizing that, by doing that, I am torturing myself, I'm causing suffering on my part, can we say no to this idea? Otherwise, we'll just keep going because there's nothing wrong with me. I mean, at least not with my life. Okay, I'm making a mistake, intellectually. I shouldn't do that. Whenever I remember, I'll try to correct myself, but beyond that, why should anything change?
So I guess there are two cases. One is Osman was challenging when we do this deliberately, knowing that it's an art. Still, sometimes we do that for academic reasons, whatever. But there are some other cases, like in Asim's presentation, he was showing the dogs of Pablo. So we have been seeing those, the bell and then the food, bell and then the food. At some point of our life, the bell is ringing, there's no food. We are urging for food. But, deeply embedded in ourselves that we cannot think otherwise. If there is bell, there has to be food. Because bell brings food. This is how we are conditioned. I guess this is what maybe Faraz is pointing to. This side of it, we always do that because it became our second nature somehow.
So I'm going to refer to this example. The way, when you started explaining it, I wanted to relate to it more. I'll be honest, in my life I haven't seen something like that except in this picture. So, I just looked at the ceiling right now, and just use the same logic that you followed. That if I say this ceiling is right now holding itself, that also implies that all the parts of the ceiling, all the particles of it is also holding themselves. But for that to happen, every single particle needs to know where its position is located. And if every particle is telling the other, well, you go there, I'll be here, and you go there, and I mean, God knows how many particles there are. It doesn't seem that there will be harmony if all of them are commanding all the others. What if one particle suddenly says, well, I don't want to be here no more, I want to change? I mean, it would collapse on us, inshallah not. Yeah, but I mean, this is how I'm making sense of this example.
Yeah, yes. Exactly the point.
Awesome. Did you have something to say? Okay, I'm about to introduce something very controversial.
Then I said Ali.
Perhaps you did not notice.
No, I saw.
So, after going through this exercise of investigating everything within this universe, including myself, and seeking the answer to the question of what is it that, or what, or who, any, like the entity that is controlling this, because obviously the question exists, and after ruling out the possibility that it cannot be itself, as it seems contradictory, within the, I guess, nature of the universe, or within the existence of the creation, why is it that this concept can be reversed or seems acceptable when it comes to understanding the creator of this creation? So why is it that and I guess I understand the why part, and now as the thought continues, why is it that I'm able to say that my creator must have the ability to, quote unquote, be the all-knowing, or be capable of manage its creation, including myself? And clearly the answer, I guess, seems to be that because I fail to find that answer in creation, right? Or I fail to find that answer in this universe, at what point does it become speculation to say that this must be so? That my creator must be able to do this? I guess within this universe, it doesn't seem much of a speculation because I'm observing this as reality. I'm observing the order. I'm observing the sustenance.
You even observing the all-knowing quality. I mean, we started with a single cell,
right?
But the point we ended up, the cell must be knowing the entire universe.
Right.
So all-knowingness is already there. That's something you experience.
Right.
So it's how you simply say there must be a source of it.
Right. So just as how I can negate this idea that it cannot be a cell because I cannot see that cell to be functioning in that way, when it comes to the creator, as I'm only observing the act of creation, not necessarily the creator directly, why is it that this idea becomes very acceptable to say that the creator is the source of the all-knowing? Is the source of everything?
I think that's a great question, but I feel like you're putting the cart before the horse, because in this case, you don't get to the creator and give him the qualities. You say, this requires comprehensive knowledge, and I don't think this cell, who sometimes gets confused or the next day is dead, this cell is it. So someone must be all-knowing, all-powerful, and that you call your creator. My creator can only be the one who knows the whole thing. Then you don't have the question like, why should my creator be given this attribute? You see what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess the point is, yes, I guess it's nicely said is, you don't start with a creator and trying to attribute things to it. You have something to attribute, and you say that, okay, there must be something exists that manifests this quality, whatever it is.
So I guess the difference is, in here, every single particle has to have all those qualities, which is the reason for contradiction. And your question is, how come is it not being hard? Because apparently it is impossibly hard in this case. Attributing it to one creator, how come that it's easy to accept?
Yeah,
I guess that's the question.
Yeah, like this,
okay.
the very same,
the question then.
right?
Okay.
The very same question or very same answer, which seems extremely contradictory in creation, becomes extremely acceptable about the creator of the creation.
Are you going to touch this in your presentation? Okay. I guess, yes, there's his presentation will touch upon the easiness of this.
No, I was going to speculate or venture an answer, but since he's going to discuss it, we'll see.
I think in the context of this session, the question is, do we agree that there must be an all-comprehensive or all-knowing knowledge for the things to exist? And if we say yes, then the question is, are we able to find that knowledge within the universe itself? I think this is, as far as I understood, this is what this subject is studying. So if we can say that, let's say it is Alavi who can make that, all this, then we don't need to look for anything any further because we already found the source. But the question is again, are we able to find anything within the universe who possesses infinite knowledge?
By the way, you wanted to say something.
Let's conclude with the elderly and I'm kidding.
Irrelevant to what has been talked prior to this, since the linguistic specialist here, I want to benefit from his critiques. The language develops out of the understanding of the majority of the people in a community, so the structure of the language develops accordingly. So, for example, in the Western world, the language developed in such a way that, for example, I see in English, I to be ill. I am ill. M is to be formed in the first singular object. Agent. M is to be often. In fact, it is to be. Right? So, the language includes the action and assigns the agent of the action to I. I to be ill. Whereas in Arabic, when you say I am ill in Arabic, ana mariyat, there is no to be. The action is not attributed to the subject. Did I say it was wrong? Subject. So there is no to be there. It means I am here, being illness is here, and it coincides to be together, and the act you need to find out. You cannot attribute the result to the subject. In this example, me. It means I am ill without attributing the action to me. So this is the language that we have to develop according to our understanding of existence, according to our understanding of the world, and we shouldn't just imitate the language we found in the society, but of course that depends on your consciousness, otherwise you just start, that is the danger. We just start thinking according to how we speak. First, we may say that I believe in God. The second time, the action, the source of action belongs to me. But I said, but I believe in God. It means nothing because it didn't reflect in my language. So the language shapes my way of thinking. We have to be careful. That's why it's easy to see that this arch cannot be the choice of the stones. There is a conscious factor behind it. We arranged it. That is easy to see. But in the practical life, we don't see it. So we have to watch out for our language, what we are saying. Although at first it may look ridiculous because it goes against our habit of using the language. Otherwise, we need to be a conscious being. That's why in the prayer, we are asked to speak to God, how? With His language, not my language. I recite the Quran only. It means speaking to Him with His language, not my language. This is what I wanted to share with you.
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Sorry?
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Oh, they will kill me.
Yeah. After the session with him.
Okay, yes. Yeah, you can talk. You can continue to talk after the inshallah. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.